My name is Rish. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Trynkle. We focus primarily on coaching and consultancy services, very much trying to get people to think a different way, trying to understand their lives, their dynamics, what's going wrong, what's going right, and basically just try to help people as much as possible. I spent a considerable amount of my career in banking and finance across the globe, looking at many different people, many different cultures, and trying my best to help as many as I could in those environments. And now I'm just at a point where I just want to take it forward and help as many people as possible. So, we're going through a crazy, strange time at the moment with COVID. And I think a lot of people are looking for answers to questions which, maybe aren't that easy to find. So our job is to help them find them.
Okay. And the second question, what does leadership means to you?
So I think there's different types of leadership. I mean, for me, it's providing guidance and helping people answer the questions that they don't know the answers to. Okay. And when you look at leaders historically, there are people that you would necessarily, you would think are better, are more mature, are more able to handle those situations or those particular tasks. So when I see myself as a leader, or I try to teach people leadership, I always tell them that, that's how you want to portray yourself. You want to put yourself on a pedestal and kind of have the qualities that people look up to, that they aspire to, right? That create levels of self-esteem and esteem within them and others that can push tasks, topics, projects forward in a way that, say, the majority of people can't do. I do think that the idea of leadership is evolving constantly, primarily because our medium, our technology is different. We're using the internet, we're using digitalization more than we did in the last, say, 10 to 15 years. And leaders these days have to just not be politicians or people who go to public forums and speak. They also need to be leaders who work through their digital actions, through all the steps that govern their day and the days of those around them. I also think a forgotten trait, and something I always tell the executives who I coach about leadership, is also show that you are human. Also show that there's a fallacy to you. There's the greatest sportsmen don't tend to always be the ones who just don't lose. They tend to be the ones who've lost but found their way back up, just to use an example. And the same is in business, and the same is in life. So you can inspire leadership by talking about your journey and how you've come. And this is exactly what this podcast is about, right? It's about inspiring people. And usually people get inspired when they hear stories that they can relate to. And 99.9%, if not 100% of people out there have fallen or experienced some level of setback in their life. So when you relate those experiences and then you turn them into more positive things, I think you've got the mark of a really, really good leader.
Yes, I agree with you, Rish, because, failure, it doesn't mean that you fail everything, right? Because failure means it's an experience for you to learn from that failure, to learn from that experience, and also to overcome it, to stand back up. So when you fall down, you get back up, and that is how you learn.
Yeah, well, I think so. A lot of this goes back to how we as a society conceptualize failure. So, if in Asia, where we are now, and in countries like Malaysia and Singapore and Hong Kong and places like that, failure is judged by, say, you not being educated or you not having a formal education, then, what are people like Mark Zuckerberg or other high school dropouts who've gone on to do amazing things for the world doing? Because we need to readjust our view on the world of failure. And sometimes these steps, these decisions to maybe drop out of university, or maybe to do a slightly different degree to your friends or your family suggesting you, these initially could be failures, but in the long term could be the mediums which lead to success. So I think when people say, I get a lot of my clients, they come to me and they say, Rish, I'm 30 years old, I'm not married, I'm still not in a job where I'm a senior manager, I'm still not driving a Honda Civic, whatever example they give. And to them, deep down in their own conscious, they view those as failures. And I think the job that you have and I have and others like us is to actually say, well, actually, those aren't necessarily failures. Some may be setbacks, some may be actual just normal, just neutral. and some may actually be able to be converted into positives in a very, very short amount of time. But I think this whole idea of failure, and especially in this culture that we live now, where your whole life is online essentially, it's easy for people to pass judgment on those things. But what's more important is you passing judgment on those things and seeing them more as, how did I get to that step? What did I mean to do getting to that step? And what's my ultimate outcome? And I think if you see things in that different type of way, you start to see success and failure in very, very different terms. And I think that's what I'm trying to get people to think like.
Yeah. Okay, and moving on to the next question. Okay, so right now we are in MCO 2.0, and the government just announced the extension of MCO till the 18th of February. Okay, in your view, as a business owner, as an employer, okay, what does this have an effect on, people's mental health, with the extension of MCO, and how can people be positive, keep the positivity, and build a growth mindset, and also the resilience to go through this, because we know that it's not easy going through another phase of MCO. It does have an effect on your job, your career, your personal life, and everything around you. So what is your opinion as a business owner, and also how does it affect mental health, one's mental health, and how can people be resilient and also keep positive, and also build a growth mindset, and also be strong to go through the difficult times? So how can they be resilient?
So it's a really good question. I think there's two parts to this. I think there's the part where the country, especially Malaysia, and every country actually has been through different phases of this lockdown. And initially, people thought, okay, this is just going to go away. We'll move on with it. And then they got into a routine to realize that actually the world has changed. And that's when the anxiety, the depression, the unknown problems set in. And that's your kind of mental health umbrella that you're talking about. And that's a really difficult umbrella to get out of, because the thing that most individuals are scared of the most is the unknown. Okay, we love things that we can predict, love things that we can see forward. If someone told me that Liverpool are going to win the Premier League next month, it relieves me as a Liverpool fan, right? But the unknown is what scares me.
Yeah, and people are scared of the unknown because they don't know what's going to happen. Yeah,
precisely. But so with that unknown, going into future waves and future stages of this MCO and lockdown, I think people now have become more numb to the unknown. So they've realized that actually, the governments, the people out there aren't necessarily doing the maximum that they can do to help us. So they've become numb. And when you become numb, you've got two choices. Mm-hmm. You either do what we just described, which is to still be scared and anxious, precious, and think about the unknown, which I'll talk about in a minute. Or you have a choice to say, you know what, I've survived this far. I've done as much as I can to now, and I'm still here, and I'm still eating, and I'm still working hard, and I'm still progressing. And that's what psychologists would say, effectively taking the positive route. Right. I think that's important. So any answer that you come up with is about taking a positive route and aligning it to what you just described, which is that growth mindset. Okay. So everyone goes through troubles in their life, whether it's an illness, a setback at work, whatever. Now, COVID is essentially just a longer period of that. And that's how you need to treat this section. Okay. For the people who are still stuck in that first anxious mindset, I think the best thing, and one of the first things they should do, is search around them for that level of positivity. So out of 10 people we know, maybe 6 or 7 are going through the same thing, but there's definitely 1 or 2 who have turned this period into something, maybe not positive, but definitely something not negative. So they've tried a new job, they've rebooted their careers, their romances, they've bought a new house potentially, or a new car because prices are slightly cheap right now. And you can take those specific examples and say, hey, well, if Rish is doing it, and she's doing it in a very simple way that maybe isn't costing that much money, and it's very much a mental thing, well, why can't I do that? And COVID in particular, the people you associate with in your inner circle and those you associate with online are very, very, very important to how you get through this slumber. Because if you're surrounding yourself with negativity, And, you know, if I'm always telling you, hey, Farish, you know what, it's such a bad day. You know, the weather's bad. I can't go out. I lost my, you know, that's contagious, right? And you're going to wake up the next day and you're going to say, well, if I speak to Rish, he's just going to tell me these things again and again. But if I come to you and I say, well, Rish, you know what, today I'm going to go out and I'm going to go for a run. I feel really good about it. I'm looking for jobs. And, you know, I really think I'm going to change my career from being a banker to an artist, you know, as an example. You're going to pick up on that motivational, enthusiastic aspect and the qualities that I'm projecting. I think that's a really, really important thing with dealing through phase two. I love the word, and the word I use a lot with my clients is reboot. Okay, it's a bit like when your computer crashes, right?
Yeah.
Or it's a bit like when your phone crashes or something. Sometimes you just need to reboot it. And this is exactly what I think is going on during COVID, or what should be going on. I think people who have reached that level, that line, and they've said, you know, I've had enough, reboot. You know, if you were in marketing for 20 years and now COVID has impacted your marketing career, and maybe you want to reinvent yourself as, say, a baker, right? Or reinvent yourself as an accountant, or whatever profession it is that you genuinely felt passion for, but you chose the marketing route, then now's the time to reboot. And I think that element is really important, because there will come a stage when COVID goes away. It may not be this year, it may not be next year, but that stage will come away. And now is the time to take stock of life, right? To do that count and say, hey, I'm 36 years old. How did I get there? Well, actually, I chose a career in corporate banking for 20 years, but actually, I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to be an astronaut. So maybe now's the time I tried to be an astronaut, right? And this is exactly how I approached my company. It was what was the thing I left behind that I really wanted to do at a young age, just to have a good, expansive, successful career.
Right.
And now COVID has let me reboot myself and say, hey, Rich, you really liked those things in the past.
Yeah.
And another good example is things like exercise. You know, how we all feel that we like to do some elements of exercise, whether it's going for a run or doing push-ups or you know, watching programs on YouTube. So you reboot yourself and you say, well, actually, now I have the time to do those things. And you're creating a more positive atmosphere and flavor in your life. And I think that that's really, really important. The only advice I would really give to everyone else, other than what I just gave, is, you know, introspection is a highly, highly underrated phenomenon. You know, we live in a world where I can go on Instagram, I can go on Facebook, I can go online and see what everyone else is like, what everyone else is doing. But I don't really do that to myself. And I love the idea that now I have the time, now I have the space, mentally and physically, to be able to say, okay, Rish, you know, what's inside me? You know, what am I doing? What's my motivations? What's my key success criteria? And what's going to help me grow and go through that growth movement, which you talked about, which ultimately is the only
growth
thing.
mindset. It's all in your mind. Yeah. It's your mind. You just have to control it. Yeah. You have to control your mind to think on growth mindset. How can you grow? Can you grow from the difficult period? How can you get out of your comfort zone?
100%. And, you know, things, I look at some of the work that you do and some of the things that you put online, and they're very powerful because they just exude positivity. Okay. And when someone is in a rut, in that slumber, you just have to keep firing levels of positivity at them. And you know, not fake positivity, not the positivity that is questionable, but you know, the genuine, you look nice today, or you know what, you look like you've lost weight. You know, I remember a time in the past when we went on traveling, you know, remind people of those positive aspects, and that growth mindset automatically.
Yes, and which is why I created a platform to advocate via digital advocacy, and also to educate people online, you know, with positive content. Because with positive content, you don't know how you can, you know, change other people's day and people's mindset and people's thinking. And then when you share it online, it's positive content, right? So other people view it, view the video, watch the video and say, hey, you know what? Instead of just sitting in my room complaining, I'm going to do something about my life. I'm going to do something about it. So some people, they kind of like procrastinate, right? And they procrastinate and then they say, it's okay. I just want to stay in my room and do nothing. But if they come across to my channel watching the videos and people that I interviewed, and you just don't know, it might change their life and say, I have to do something. I have to do
100%.
something. I have to do something about my life, because if I don't push myself, if I'm too comfortable in my comfort zone, I won't achieve anything. But if I push myself, you got to push yourself. You push yourself to get out of that comfort zone, you will achieve something. You just need that extra push. And you need that extra motivation. And also it helps to have good friends and also families around you, and also a mentor to guide and push you. So you need to get out of that zone. You need to get out of the comfortable zone and be uncomfortable. Because when you're uncomfortable, you are going to achieve great things. And that's how great things happen, by being uncomfortable and also to push yourself to reach that goal.
No, 100%. I mean, one of the examples I use when I speak to my clients is, I mean, imagine when you sometimes you see people on Zoom, or you see big bosses and you see their offices, and they usually have certificates behind them, right? Remember?
Yes,
And
all
they have
the degree, MBA, and all the certifications. Yeah.
And then they'll have a picture of their husband and wife and their children on their desk, and they'll have company pen, and all these,
and the awards, all the accolades, the awards, the certificates.
And all these are objects of a moment of success or happiness in your past, right? Now, if that person goes into his office, or she goes into her office, I don't think they go and read certificates every day. I don't think they go and look at the photo every day, or the pen, or the awards every day. They don't do that every day. It's not normal.
Right.
But those are the happy moments in their life, or the successful moments in their life. Now, one of the beautiful things that we have in the world right now, it's quite easy to catalog our moments in our life, because we have a smartphone, right?
Yes.
Or we have a camera.
Social media, and we have videos, our app, and we have our social media, our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it. We have so many platforms to share.
And my point is, I always tell them, you know what, go back to how you got to those moments, right? So sometimes pick up your phone and think about, your favorite holiday was a holiday in Tokyo in Japan. Then go back to, how did you get there? How did you save the money to get there? How did you tell your boyfriend that you wanted to go to Japan? How did you, plan that whole thing? And this is really, really important, because actually the answers, and you said it perfectly, the answers are actually all within the individual.
It's within you. Yeah.
And the role of us, or the role of a coach or a therapist or anyone, just figure out how to slowly get those answers out, and how for you to see as an individual to get those answers out. And these are just very basic exercises. Go back to points in your past when you were happy. Think about why and how you were happy. Think about how you can replicate that in the modern current scenario, and just surround yourself with successful, positive vibes. And success isn't making $1 billion. Success is maybe growing a plant and seeing how it grows. And I did this very recently. I grew a tree just to see how it grows. I mean, that to me was a success that I never achieved. And yes. I think you and your network of people who are trying to have these discussions in a way that leads to levels of inspiration, empowerment, inclusivity are really, really important, because ultimately, they're frank conversations. Sometimes these are not conversations that someone now sitting listening to us may naturally have with their friends or family. So they need these outlets. They need to hear these frank conversations between other people. And I just think you should keep doing it. I think you should just keep getting as many people as you can on your podcast as well, to just promote that message and show people that for every negative thing in the world, I guarantee there's 10 positive. And this is a role where I think social media and the media generally needs to be a bit more proactive, because when I switch on the news now, and I switch on to, say, TV3, or I switch on to CNN, it's all negative. It's like, what happened in Myanmar is negative. Fine, it needs to be reported, but it's negative. I wish that social media and the media print more positive things. There are success stories going on out there. There are people who have had babies. The birth rate is huge during COVID. There are people who are, having long distance relationships but surviving. That's positive.
And there are also people who are donating food and items to the needy. We're helping the families, like for example, people who are, contributing their part to the society and helping people. Yeah. So, like, for example, there are people who, contribute food and donate food to the needy, to the orphanage, to the shelter home. So that is a positive news that we can share because it will also inspire others to do the same thing, right?
100%. Yeah. And, as you rightly point out, there's so many things out there that just not getting enough attention. And you don't need to be a overly charitable, philanthropic type of person to respect and acknowledge these things. I mean, even very simple things like a very good example I read the other day. So I was having a chat with a friend of mine who's a scientist, who's a climate change scientist, and he said that during the COVID period, the amount of emissions that have gone out globally has reduced significantly, right? So COVID has brought about some positive things, right?
Yeah, so it's less pollution.
Precisely, and that's a really positive thing, right? We wish that we could have a normal life and have that at the same time, but we should take these positive things, and hopefully when COVID is actually over, people don't just go back to their normal lives and pathetic, only thinking about their own lives. Hopefully they start to realize that actually as a society, we need to come together and help each other out. So, continue doing what you're doing. I think it's really helpful. I think it's really helpful in countries like Malaysia, where the voice is not as loud as it could be. Let me put it that way, right? In Western countries, there tends to be a lot of forums like this where companies say what they want. But in countries like in Asia specifically, the voice isn't as loud as it could be, and it's our job to make sure that we put it out.
Okay, thank you, Rish. We have come to the end of the show for our Inspiring Series video podcast. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with our viewers?
The final thing I'd like to share is, we appreciate and acknowledge that everyone's going through tough times, anxiety, depression, even just loneliness. And my company Trynkle, much like the work Rish is doing, is aimed to get people talking and get people out of those conditions and out of that mental struggle that they're going through. So if you have any questions or want any sessions talking about your specific issues or challenges, please reach out to me at trynkle.com or through Felicia, and we can all get through this together.
Okay, how can people get in touch with you personally and also online? What is your Facebook, Instagram, and also LinkedIn for people to reach out with you?
Sure, so you can pretty much find me everywhere by my name, Rish Tandapany. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite proactive on LinkedIn, where you can see a lot of my articles and read through that. On Instagram, my handle is @Trynkle, and you'll see a lot of videos orientated towards getting people to talk about their problems out there. And my email is just rish@trynkle.com. So that's TRYNKLE.com, Rish, RISH. So please reach out. No problem is a wrong problem, or no problem is something that should be kept quiet. If we don't have the answers, we will recommend you to someone who does. And I just encourage everyone to speak their mind and vocalize themselves.
Thank you so much, Rish. Thank you for sharing in today's session of Inspiring Series video podcast. And I hope for those of you who are watching this, I hope you are motivated and also inspired by the sharing from Rish just now. And if you want to get in touch with him, you can connect with him online via social media, via Facebook, Instagram, and also LinkedIn. Till then, stay safe, take care, bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.